I think it's only proper that I would close with this. My name's RJ. I'm the program supervisor of Albany Adult and Teen Challenge. But I'm not only the program supervisor, I'm a product of what an individual who is willing to be committed and surrendered looks like in the hands of an awesome God.
Amen.
Amen. I grew up in a really good home, about 25 minutes from here, in Philmont, New York, Columbia County. I grew up with a mother that was a part of the church, and she was a believer, and she was a praying woman. And I had a father who was a nominal Catholic. But they instilled in me good morals. I was brought up in a really, really good home. And I went to college and I got a degree. I got a license as a New York State funeral director. And I started to go into the business field. And I started to prosper and life started to look good. But how many know that, listen, drug addiction is not a respecter of persons.
That's right.
It doesn't matter your economic status. It doesn't matter whether you're a business executive or a bum on the street. It has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to kill, steal, and to destroy everything in your life. And so it wasn't until 23 years old that I began to do drugs. Besides, the smoking the marijuana and the partying on the weekends in high school, but really getting into hard drugs at the age of 23 and quickly became my demise. Tore everything from me. My child, my career. I ended up going into a life of crime and drug dealing, and drugs took everything from me. And a mother who consistently would always pray for me. Every Wednesday night, every Friday night, every Sunday morning, every opportunity that she was in the house of the Lord, she would get the elders together and they would pray that God would loose me of the addiction of drugs. But I continued on. And I continued not only to kill myself, but to kill relationships around me. And in 2010, after 16 years of running from God's call on my life, and my mother always said, God's got a call on your life. And listen, as an unbeliever, what does that mean? What does God has a call on your life look like? And so, as things began to get bad in 1997, I entered Teen Challenge through the Syracuse Induction Center, and I went on to Rearsburg, and in 13 months I finished the program, and I graduated in 1998 in April. But you know what happened was when I went there for all the wrong reasons. Because, I had heard in Christian circles that God gives things back. I heard that God restores things. And I was more worried about the things that God could give me rather than knowing the God that gives. And so when I went through the program, it was to appease my mother. It was to get my baby's mom back. It was to get my child back. It was to get my life back. And when I came out of the doors of Teen Challenge in 1998, instead of being transformed by the power of God, I hung on to so many other things from my past, and I quickly brought it to my future. And for the next 16 years, I ran in the circles, up and down, up and down. I was what they would consider a habitual backslider. I just couldn't get my life together. But yet I knew deep inside of me, I knew that God had a purpose, and I knew that God had a plan for my life. And the only way that that could come was through surrendering everything. And in 2010, I had been for many years much more chemically dependent to drugs, but I was absolutely 100% spiritually bankrupt. 2010, God called me. As sure as the day is long, I'm telling you, I heard God say to me, today you have to make a decision. You're either going to serve me or you're going to serve the world, but there is no more middle ground. And it was at that moment that I surrendered my life to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. And I went into Teen Challenge on a restoration in Long Island, December 27th, 2010. And listen, I'm not saying that there weren't moments that I didn't want to pack my bags. I'm not saying that there weren't moments that I wasn't kicking and screaming and that I didn't want to change my mind and that I didn't want to get on the train and come back home. But I knew one thing was for certain, that God had called me and that He had a purpose for my life and that I had made a commitment that I was surrendering everything to Him.
Amen.
Amen.
And He radically changed my life. And here I am 9 years later. I'm standing here as the program supervisor. Not that a title has anything, but it is a great privilege to be able to serve God through the ministry of Teen Challenge.
Amen.
And so I'm here to tell you 9 years later that the power of God is sufficient.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. The power of God is sufficient. And I leave you with this. The scripture that I stand on is 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 10. It says, be all the more diligent to make your calling and your election sure. Because if you do, you will never fall. Thank you, Pastor.
Right.